My name is Greg Austin. I'm from the East-West Institute, which is an international organisation based in New York with offices in Moscow and in Brussels. The project I'm working on is how to improve global responses to the vulnerable communities in places like the Horn of Africa. This project really developed out of work on climate security. So the East-West Institute, which has classically been a traditional security institute where we work on track 2 diplomacy, we bring countries together who normally don't talk to each other about the big problems of military security. And about 3 or 4 years ago, we started working on some of the big global issues like energy security, counter-terrorism, violent extremism. And as we began to develop our work on climate security, we came to understand that there were many threads of policy that were operating in parallel in some of the worst affected countries where there was political violence, violent extremism and so on. And as we tried to develop our response to the very important problem of climate change, we came to the view that responding only through a narrow channel of climate change response was probably not appropriate. And as we started to think about how we might better bring together these with different threads of policy, we came to see the word resilience as a valuable tool for the endpoint we were trying to promote in terms of effective outcomes for the people on the ground in these affected communities. We saw an opportunity not only to address a range of in a sense, input problems from the existing international actors and interveners, but we saw a need to bridge that group of traditional interveners with a group of interveners from especially the Saudi Peninsula who had lots of money, were already acting in all sorts of interesting ways to intervene in these communities, but were really not linked up as well as they might be with the other actors. And it's quite interesting that as you go around the development community, you can see how all of these different threads of policy are not really well joined up, how the different communities of intervention really act quite separately. This was sort of evident as the international community went into Afghanistan after the US and Allied invasion to unseat the Taliban, but it was also evident in the international intervention in Iraq. But it's really been a typical characteristic, of the entire post-war period. When we go in, when the international community goes in, it's really acting with a limited set of instruments, very powerfully directed in many cases through development assistance, sometimes through humanitarian assistance, but there are big gaps in policy which are not addressed. The other really big thing that shaped our work was recognition of the impact of scarcity on future economic security of these already vulnerable communities. One of the best examples of this is that as oil prices spiked in 2007, 2008, that led to quite significant food price rises in different parts of the world and food price riots. And there is a school of thought that the Arab Spring, as it unfolded in both Egypt and Yemen, was directly the result of those food price problems. Of course, the linkage is not simple, but we basically endorse that linkage. Then the third element is really what is the long-term impact of climate change. So there's this recognition globally that climate change is happening already. A lot of African countries believe it's already happening to them in serious ways. Anecdotally, they say it's simply getting hotter. So we've had consultations with African ambassadors. They say that the international community is not responding to climate change that's happening now, to climate threats that already exist. So we have this this situation where we've got streams of intervention that aren't working. We've got climate change as a looming problem. We've got resource scarcity as a looming problem. And we've got institutional organisations that are unable to cope. So we're looking for an answer that will help vulnerable communities in that environment. The opportunity to be here at Bellagio, for 4 weeks to calmly reflect on the issues that we've put on the table is simply, in one sense, too good to be true. But what was immediately evident for me on day one, and from the testimony of colleagues here, has been that merely the opportunity to pause and think about it almost immediately shifts the way you look at it. So on day one, almost everybody here had a new idea about their work. And that was certainly the case with me.